In the spring of 2001, Rivers Cuomo and the band came back to the mainstream. With revitalized rock fame, Weezer chose to fire their old management as a statement of intent, with Cuomo declaring that the band no longer needed any more administration. Cuomo had declared that their next album would be funded and produced by the band itself. A few weeks following the release of the Green Album, Weezer went back to the studio to hash out ideas for their next record, creating a series of new songs. With Mikey Welsh's dissolution with the band, Weezer held out tryouts to replace their bassist, settling on Scott Schreiner. With Weezer now more powerful than ever before, Cuomo was determined to drift Weezer's fourth album into a different direction, incorporating heavy metal riffs, a stray away from the band's prior releases. Instead of relying on a major producer or label to manufacture another pop hit, that of say the caliber of the Green Album, Cuomo chose to venture online and ask Weezer fans what they wanted to hear off the forthcoming record, releasing demos of songs to Weezer.com, yearning for feedback. Unfortunately, to Cuomo's disliking, fans of Weezer would begin to rebel against the band, and against Cuomo himself. This retaliation would be the beginning of a long war against Weezer fans, and would deter Cuomo to a childish backlash against his older projects, going up to bat for Weezer's fourth record, now titled by the fans as Maladroit. Maladroit would be released on May 14th, 2002, with a bizarre cover art that featured a young man reading a book, with muted colors that featured none of the band members on the cover. Like the title for the record, the album art was also submitted by a fan, alongside a tracklist heavily influenced by Weezer's audience. Welcome back to Keeping It Weezer. Today we will analyze Weezer's oddball fourth record, considered as the band's underrated gem, as well as Rivers Cuomo's struggle to convince his fans that the record was as deserving of prominence and substance as the likes of Blue and Pinkerton. Let's get to it. Maladroit is defined by the dictionary as being ineffective or bungling. It is to be clumsy or awkward, much like Weezer's own fans. Weezer's own message boards had brought the band back to life, and from the period of late 2001 to early 2002, Cuomo chose to entrust his own admirers to create a stellar tracklist for Maladroit. According to Carl Cook, the demos that were made prior to the Green Album were made to please the record company, while the demos that were made for Maladroit were there to piss off the record company. Without Geffen's permission, Weezer had uploaded over 150 in-progress demos to Weezer.com. The following record would be a complete rejection to what came before. From the get-go, the first track off of Maladroit, titled American Gigolo, is a hard rock song filled with a demanding attitude. Its demo-like presentation sets the tone for the rest of the record, with a messy but yet charming series of crunching guitars and drumming. This is the Rivers that had been hiding since 1996, when he was rejected by the mainstream following the reaction of Pinkerton. Now that the band had been redeemed by the internet and its resurgence, it was time for Rivers to finally do things for himself, and not for a major label company. In an interview with Guitar World in May of 2002, Rivers was questioned about the sudden direction of the band almost immediately following the release of Green.
After not releasing a record for nearly half a decade, you've drastically increased the speed of your output. Do you feel like you're making up for the time you lost during Weezer's hiatus?
I haven't really thought about it. I never really perceived it as going on hiatus. I was working the whole time, woodshedding and working on songwriting. Now I feel like I've reached a certain level of craftsmanship, and I don't see any reason to hold back.
Maladroit is much more riff-driven than the Green Album. Did you deliberately set out to make something more aggressive?
No, it wasn't deliberate. But I think that after you've made a record that's pretty straight pop stuff, you kinda wanna bust loose on the guitar a little bit. It's just something that you feel in your bones. I opened up my playing during the songwriting process, and this is where we ended up.
I perceive American Gigolo as a catchy and perfect introduction to the world of Maladroit, with the Gigolo being defined as a male escort being financially supported by an older woman. My analysis tells that the lyrics have a double meaning, one that describes the tale of a gigolo, but also Rivers' thought process during Maladroit, with lyrics admitting that although the following listener may hate this new direction for the band, Rivers is by all means already used to it, as he's seen this game before. With a soaring chorus, this song is catchy and definitely one of my favorite openers to a Weezer album. Despite the potential backlash the album will spur, Rivers will continue to play his guitar. Okay, so you have to know something about Rivers during this time period. He was going off on like absolutely everybody. It was insane. And it may have been due to all the substances he was abusing. For the second track off of Maladroit, Rivers admitted that the song Dope Noise had no real meaning to it whatsoever.
It's not about anything. It's just a bunch of garbage lyrics. It was 6 in the morning. I had 3 shots of tequila. and I forget how many milligrams of Ritalin. And I just went in my backyard and sat down. In like half an hour, I was just like foaming at the mouth. And I just wrote it in one manic burst of about 3 minutes. Sitting there in the chair, composing it in my head. Not even with a guitar, just all in my mind. Bam! There's Dope Noise.
The music video for Dope Noise is interesting in itself as well. The band is hanging out with a couple Japanese people who are doing some tricks on motorcycles. For some reason, one of the guys they're hanging out with is riding with a Confederate flag attached to their motorcycle. Are we going to talk about this? One of the most noteworthy things about the song, which I believe says a lot about Rivers' mindset at the time, is Cuomo saying a homophobic slur. To contextualize the term, 90s and early 2000s slang usage of the slur related more to appearing as weak rather than being homophobic. That's the unfortunate truth of the time period. For example, rapper Eminem was notorious for using the word often in his earlier work, stating that his use of the word was not rooted in homophobia, but rather calling someone a punk or an asshole. Personally, I'd say one of the worst aspects of this song would have to be the cover art for it. Seriously, look at this. It looks like the band has just been covered in Vaseline. Like, what the hell is this? As for the track itself, it's definitely a decent single. I'm not as into it as others are, but I believe it really displays the new bass's skills. Scott Schreiner's bass is prominent, and I have to admit, the chorus is catchy. Not a bad track by any means, but the single that comes following this track blows the song out of the water.
Thank you very much, folks. The Muppet Show is proud to present our very special guest, I hope, Weezer! Yeah!
In 2006, Rivers was asked if Keep Fishin' was about a girl, to which Rivers replied with this.
I don't know. It's just, I don't know what I was saying. Maybe it was?
Originally created right after the release of the Green album, the original Keep Fishin' is notably slower than its final counterpart. Rivers decided to give the track a second life with the release of Maladroit, creating a newer version as one of the lead singles for the record. Keep Fishin' is a fantastic song and one of my favorites from the band, with booming drums and a mesmerizing guitar that leads into an overall happy-sounding track. The lyrics are pretty vanilla, being a song about Rivers fearing his partner loving someone else, but the backing vocals by the band, they're really good. The music video for the song is also a lot of fun, with Weezer teaming up with the Muppets. The plot for the video is as follows. Weezer is about to perform live until they realize that their drummer, Patrick Wilson, is missing, only for it to be revealed that he's been tied up by Miss Piggy backstage. Pat is able to escape, leading to a whole bunch of hijinks to ensue. It's such a cute music video and just really wholesome. Seeing Rivers smile is really heartwarming. MTV even released a making of special for the song, featuring the band speaking to the Muppets, and Pat looking extremely uncomfortable. It's awesome.
No, actually, we're just friends. We're just friends. You don't mind, you don't mind my hand on your knee, do you?
No, I think that's fine.
The song is amazing and just such a fun time all around. Let's see if the rest of the record is able to keep this flame alive. Let's talk about the sound of Maladroit. At the time of its release, this was the most metal Weezer album. With its crunchy guitar riffs, Maladroit is distinct to its prior releases, being the least streamed Weezer record out of all of them. Maladroit has been declared by its most vocal fans as an underrated gem. It's funny, really. This assessment has become so popular within the past decade that it's become a meme in the Weezer community to even call Maladroit an underrated gem. I mean, it's good, don't get me wrong, but I don't think it's like the most amazing Weezer album by any means. And I know it doesn't really have to be, but my personal connection to this album isn't really that grand compared to the 3 records that came prior. Tracks like the one I'm about to cover titled Take Control are decent all around, but in some ways I believe Maladroit suffers from Green Album syndrome. That is, some of the tracks sounding too sameish for my taste. Take Control at a glance is suitable and unique enough to stand on its own, but I hardly remember this one when I'm retrospecting on older Weezer tracks. Its original version is mellow, but its newer version is heavier on its guitars. It's a tough follow-up to Keep Fishin', but I believe the lyrics are more of note. With the line, "Leave me now, show me how, and I won't be ashamed of the things we once made," insinuating that he does not care about any ridicule that the band may receive in the future. A callback to how he reacted following the poor reception of Pinkerton. Despite this striking suggestion by Rivers that he doesn't care about what critics have to say anymore, his eventual actions to the reception of Maladroit would speak louder. Despite all the love and passion we try to give to someone, efforts remain futile if their heart is no longer there. Death and destruction is accepting that someone you love doesn't feel the same way about you anymore. Despite all the pain and destruction their former lover has brought, the protagonist of the song can't help but still value them with every fiber of their being. It's a melancholy but beautiful piece that ends with a harmonic outro, and Rivers Cuomo spelling out the letters to say, "I love you." With nothing but emotion in his breath, Rivers is able to deliver a cry for a former love who has ditched him and gone far away. With something so beautiful, who would have expected that online? Rivers was anything but charming.
I think you've been childish a bit. Toys out of the pram, do you know what I mean?
I think so. Well, I try to give myself license to do whatever I want at any time regardless of how it affects other people. And I think the benefits I gain artistically from living like that outweighs the cost of, all the problems I have with society. Everyone hating me.
While creating Maladroit, Rivers became more and more reliant on asking the web for help in crafting the record. In early 2002, a Weezer internet forum titled the Rivers Criticism Board, soon renamed as the Rivers Correspondence Board, was published online. Developed by Weezer fans who were unsatisfied with the Green Album and the demos being released for Maladroit, Rivers couldn't turn away from the online ridicule, and decided to join in on the fray under the username Ace, as a reference to one of his metal guitar heroes, Ace Frehley of Kiss. For example, on March 4th, 2002, user Aschin asserted that Weezer's newer stuff wasn't as good as, say, Only in Dreams, the last track off of the Blue Album, considered by many as one of the best songs of all time. Rivers Cuomo responded to this post by stating this:
Only in Dreams is boring, and I can't imagine that anyone here actually sits down and listens to that 8-minute piece of shit. Our song December kills Only in Dreams, as does our song Slob, and Death and Destruction. Is anyone here man enough to admit that Only in Dreams is boring? That the vocals are contrived? That the lyrics are gay as hell? My brother almost disowned me when he heard the chorus. That the bass line is an exact ripoff of the song Have You Seen Her? None of you agree with me. Play it for any sane person and they'd fall asleep before they had a chance to give you their verdict. Worst song on a bad album. Only in dreams we see what it means. Reach out our hands, hold on to hers. Gay, 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 Disney gay. Admit it, gay. If only you guys gave newer songs half the gay allowance you gave to the old ones. I can't tell you the courage it takes to sing these songs every night.
As you can see, Rivers was taking criticism against his newer material pretty harshly, and who can blame him? At one moment, he had both critics and fans despising him for producing Pinkerton, and all of a sudden, 5 years later, people began to love that record. Now, Rivers is attempting to produce stuff he deems as gold, and his fans are rejecting the material, declaring that it doesn't touch anything that appeared on Blue or Pinkerton. Somehow, the fans were able to pull through with Rivers Cuomo, and managed to convince him to put the cut Slob on the record. Slob is a depressing and bleak track that tells of Cuomo's state of mind as a celebrity who merely wants to be left alone. He wants people to leave him behind and stop ridiculing him, as he himself already has a low self-esteem about himself. Slob is a gritty and vulnerable look into Cuomo's state of mind, with punching guitars and screeching vocals. It is unique compared to the tracks that came before, and many of the tracks that come after it. Speaking of which, what comes after is the peaceful antidote that the record has been looking for. In the spring of 2001, Weezer created a track that only contained an instrumental and lacked any lyrics whatsoever. In search for a producer for their fourth album, Weezer decided to give this track some lyrics, with Rivers Cuomo ad-libbing lines that curtailed his love of potato chips, going off of nutritional facts found on a Pringles can. I am not kidding. This was like the alternative rock version of freestyling. Eventually, the song got a name titled Burndt Jamb, with the riff borrowing itself from the tune Breezin' by George Benson. Despite a series of various incarnations, Burndt Jamb's final release off of Maladroit is a calm and easygoing tune that contradicts many of the harder tracks off the record. It is my favorite song off the album, and a sweet tune that packs punchy drums and guitars throughout the chorus. The inspiration for the lyrics originated with a spur-of-the-moment fascination of goth girls. Cuomo had become fascinated with a goth chick, becoming enamored by her personality and fashion style. Burndt Jamb is a funky and chilled-out tune that tells a brilliant story of yearning for a lover. It deserves to be re-examined once again by listeners, and this time thoroughly appreciated, as it really is just gold. Coming in at 1 minute and 53 seconds, Space Rock is the shortest track off of Maladroit that attempts to throw shade at the critical side of the Weezer fandom. In its brief presence, Cuomo compares these internet trolls as merely children who are playing a game with him. Despite Cuomo's efforts to try and convince these trolls that the newer Weezer output is actually solid, he is harshly rejected. To be fair, Cuomo at this time was also a bit of a troll himself. Hell, at one point during a concert in 2002, he hailed Hitler.
Heil Hitler, motherfucker. What? Fuck you!
What the hell? What I'm trying to say here is that each side of the battle had their own respective problems and point of views. This is an issue between one side that wishes and demands a return to the old, against another that wishes to move on and to experiment. Who is the good guy here? Well, you decide that. Space Rock is alright. Lyrically, it's fairly dense and personal, but instrumentally, it's bland. Its follow-up, however, is a great improvement. Considered as one of the most underrated Weezer songs off of a relatively more obscure record, Slave was released online as a demo. After fan input, the band chose to add Slave onto the track list. I would like to point out that the fan input of songs such as Slave, Slob, or even the title and cover to the record had been unique in the vast catalog of Weezer's discography. Such adamant pushing by fans at the time was vital in trying to get songs that would otherwise be trapped in the chambers of obscurity, such as Slave, allowed them to have a chance to connect with a broader sense of listeners. With decent lyrics, Slave offers a charming guitar solo that is able to guide us into what I consider the lesser section of the record. On May 14th, 2002, Maladroit was released to decent reviews by critics. Described at its release by Cuomo as unproduced, the record sold nearly nowhere as well as its green counterpart. Not only that, but reaction to the album by fans themselves at its first release was also divisive, with fans criticizing its unproducedness and at times forgettable tunes. Fall Together is a decent track, with soaring backing vocals dominated by a riff-obsessed narrative, but falls behind in its bland lyricism about always being there for one's girlfriend. It doesn't get much better with the track Possibilities, which has been described as the earliest Weezer track on an album to never be performed live. Yeah, people don't really talk about this one. The guitar riffs are once again prominent here, but it's not even close to being substantive or distinct enough to compare to what has come before it. The song that follows Possibilities, Love Explosion, has also been mostly forgotten by Weezer fans, being the least streamed track off the record. In 2009, Patrick Wilson described this track as the worst Weezer song of all time. I wouldn't go that far as there is way worse, but it's definitely boring and lacks any real imagination. So far, the final section of the record has been underwhelming. Now it is up to the closer to the album to bring it home. In the year 2000, Weezer released a 2-song EP titled The Christmas CD, meant to be a teaser right before the band produced the Green Album. It was delivered to Weezer fans during the month of December as a surprise. The Christmas song originally appeared on a Christmas compilation of various artists entitled Kevin and Bean, The Real Slim Santa. For its appearance on the Christmas CD, the song was re-recorded. The Christmas song is mournful. Gone is the jolliness of Christmas cheer, and instead enters a crushing record with a sporadic electric guitar, almost as if even the guitar is crying. Rivers is missing his ex-lover again, who told him that she'd always be there. But at this Christmas junction, he sits staring at the beaming Christmas tree, and can't help but think about her. He truly loved her. It is a cold December night, and she begins to wander his mind once again. He wonders if she ever knew just how much he cared. But it's all over now. The only thing he can do now is cry beside the Christmas tree, with no one but himself. It is a dark, cold, and rainy December evening. A boy finds himself to be in love with a girl and is seeking her for warmth. To him, That girl is his muse, and his one and only. It is the end of another year on Earth, a year that has certainly brought struggles and lessons the boy will never forget. He has been beaten down, tried over and over again, but at the end of it all, throughout all the pain and suffering, he still finds a burning flame within the pouring rain. It's only natural to want to be loved, to know that someone will always be there for you despite all your faults and mistakes, as you are only human. And maybe right now, you may not feel like anybody loves you, but just know that one day, someone will. In the closer to Maladroit, Weezer brings the record home with a soothing farewell that paints a warm ballad with the month of December. For it is only trust that can inspire, and it is only love that can breathe fire into the boy's cold heart that is still, after everything that's tested him this year, is somehow still going. For it is only love that can bring us home. Maladroit is bizarre. It's definitely not a bad record, not by any means. It's catchy and can even be really fun, but at times it feels like tracks are added in to pad out its already short runtime. I understand Weezer fans stating that it's an underrated gem, as songs such as Keep Fishin', Slob, or Burndt Jamb are stellar songs that need more recognition. I find it ironic that the record that was once criticized for its experimentation is now being celebrated for its one-of-a-kind production. In the years following Maladroit, Weezer has been giving the record some love, even playing a live rendition of December in 2014, and even playing Slave for a Spotify recording session in 2016. To me, I will always remember the release of Maladroit as the first true battle between Weezer and its fans. Although I don't share a deep personal connection with the record, I understand its significance in Weezer's discography. The record symbolizes the first of many battles to come between the fans. After the release of 2 back-to-back records, Weezer would go back into hiatus until 2005. They would return with their biggest hit of all time, a record absolutely despised by its harshest critics and its most vocal haters. A record known simply as Weezer's Make Believe.